Today I'm joined by a special person at the other side of the world. One of my coaches in my early playing days and coming into the national team. Today I'm joined by ex-Scotland, ex-Dutch national coach Peter Drinnen. How you going, Drinno?
Fantastic, Shaky. Thanks for having me.
Just before we came on, I had the pleasure of meeting Drinno's lovely family, lovely 3 children, which was new to me because when I knew Drinno, it was just Drinno and his good lady. So lovely to see family all well, happy and looking very settled now in Australia, Drinno.
Yeah, very much. It was funny, Shaky. I think we'll talk a little bit about my early days, but the reason I went to Scotland, I went over there single, and my dad said to me, I think I was 32 at the time, and he says, you need to sort your life out, get some direction in your life. So away I went to Scotland, and within a few months I met Lindsay, and yeah, I suppose the rest is history. So that move, I suppose, was very productive, to be honest. I got 3 beautiful
You got your dad to thank on that one. Your dad told you to make that move. It was a very productive move.
It was, and yeah, one of my young lads is Scottish. I got 2 Dutch kids, and yeah, no, very, very happy here. So
good.
It's worked out well.
I'm glad to hear it. So, Drinno, I'm going to start, as you said, I'm going to take you all the way back down memory lane. You were born on the 5th of October 1967 in lovely Bundaberg in Queensland. Tell me about your childhood, your family. What was it like growing up?
So yeah, a fantastic upbringing. I grew up on a sugarcane farm, just about 12k outside of Bundaberg, and it's such a relaxed upbringing. I had an older brother and a younger sister, and we're very, very close family. Very close family, still very, very close now. I lost my dad a few years ago, but we're a very, very close family. Mum's still going well. Up in Bundy, and my sister's still up in Bundy with my brother. And yeah, look, the farm life was wonderful. I left school quite early, to be honest. And year 10, I went back to work on the farm for 4 years. And that was, a fantastic experience. Had to work hard. In those days, things were very, very different. And I suppose the cricket came in. I was very close to one of my neighbours, and when you're living on a farm, the neighbour's not just next door, they're down the road a little bit. And each afternoon after school, we used to get back to his place, pitch the stumps underneath the mango trees, and that's where we played our cricket. We made up the rules, and we played test matches. We played all sorts of cricket in that backyard, and we lost a lot of balls in the cane fields and whatnot, but yeah, that's where I grew up. We didn't have the coaching that we perhaps got these days and whatnot. You learn a lot yourself, and they were wonderful days growing up. And yeah, I refer back to them. People ask me, how did you get into the game? I just played it in the backyard at my mate's place underneath the mango trees.
Yeah,
and being creative, and yeah, and then from there I think you got to have a passion, haven't you, Shaggy? I've always loved the game. And I've been fortunate. I've had a few coaches along the way to help me, but yeah, I just love the game. Still do.
Yeah. So when did you start to realise that you had a talent for the game? I mean, when was your first kind of experience of playing in some sort of? Did you play in a local club side? Obviously, your childhood sounds like it was just you and your mate, and maybe your big brother or something around the kind of the local area. But when did you start, progressing that into going to a club or playing for a region or something?
Yeah, look, I joined a club. Gee, I would have, under 10s, under 12s, young, and look, I managed to have a pretty good time of it as a youngster. I represented the state, 12s, 14s, 16s, right through to the 19s and whatnot. So I had a pretty good time of it through their underages, and my club in Bundaberg was Clubbites, and I managed to, they selected me as a young fellow. I think I was 15 when I made my first grade debut there, and again I managed to do quite well, mainly with the bat, to be honest. I was always a keeper. I love the keeping, but I probably scored a lot more runs in my younger days than what I did as I got on. So, and then as I said, I stayed in Bundaberg till I was 19. I got offered a scholarship with the Australian Institute of Sport, and that come about 86, I think it was. And people always said, you've got to move to the city. You've got to move to the city. And I did make that move with this scholarship. Sorry, I jumped a little bit further forward there, Shaker. Memory, mate, I'm getting old.
Yeah.
But no, I got this country scholarship, a Prudential scholarship. I think it was. I think Prudential was a bank. I think it wasn't much back then. It's $1,500 in assistance to move from the country to the city.
Yeah.
So I think I was about 19 then, 18, 19. So I'd helped my dad for 4 years on the farm, and then I got this offer to go to the city to play cricket, and that's what it was about. And they put me on a building site, big building site in the city. That was my work, and they linked me up with a club. Yeah, my first club was Souths, and I played the one days for them, and that was my transition from the country into the grade scene in Brisbane. So I got a little support there to do that. And I lived with some mates down here. And as I said, the job was found for me. They set me up pretty well as a young lad. And I was pretty excited about that. So I played that first season with Souths. And I didn't play the 2 days, just played the 1 days because I was in the Colts. It was a Colts team back then. It was like an under-19 side that played in the 2-day comp. So I was involved in that side. And the 1 days I played for the club.
Okay.
So and that was a wonderful competition. It was a bunch of young blokes, like the under-19 state team it was, that played in the grade comp.
Yep.
And then from there, the year after that, I'm really thinking here, Shaky. I should have put some preparation. I think it's a long time ago.
No, go for it, mate. Go for it.
But then that next year, 87, 88, then I got offered the academy scholarship down in Adelaide, the first intake of the Commonwealth Bank Cricket Academy. And that sort of come out of the blue. I'd only been in the city 1 year. And that came as quite a surprise. And basically that was 15 players from all around Australia heading to Adelaide and spending 12 months down there working on cricket, playing cricket. And look, that was a fantastic sort of platform, to be honest. You can imagine just coming from the country 12 months prior, playing a little bit of grade cricket in Brisbane, and then straight down to this academy, training cricket pretty well 7 days a week, with I think 13 of the 15 players down there had played or were very close to playing first class cricket. So it was a strong bunch. We just had our 30-year reunion just last November.
All right, okay.
Wonderful to catch up. Yeah, wonderful to catch up with those blokes. And there's some serious cricket, Stewie Law, Darren Berry, Scott Prestridge, a ton of great blokes in there. And Joey Scuderi, another one. And it was a fantastic squad of cricketers and fantastic blokes. So we had a cracking year down there, and then that sort of launched me a little bit into the next stage, which was I think the first games I played was against Pakistan, actually.
Yeah, no, so I'm going to come into that. So I mean, first thing I'm getting from that is you kind of you stayed out in the sticks for quite a while, but then when you made the move, things did start to work out, start to really move motor pretty quickly for you. I mean, you didn't have much. You didn't stay in Brisbane too long. You then obviously are saying you went to Adelaide, which sounds like you were in amongst some very, very talented cricketers. So you really, the move was definitely on the sensible decision to make. If you'd probably stayed where you were, you probably wouldn't have had that development as quick as you have had it.
No, I think that's fair to say. And it evolved, Shaky. It didn't sort of, it just evolved. Everything I've done, to be honest with you, has just evolved.
Yeah.
I've never been massively driven to play for Australia or coach at the highest level, anything like that. I've always been driven. It seems like a simple thing to say, but driven to do the best I can at whatever I'm doing, Shaky. That's it. You know what I mean? Things have just evolved for me, to be honest. And that was like the cricket.
Yeah, no,
You know, I just
we're going to come into some stuff. Obviously, more over my time knowing you over in Scotland, but I want to touch on your career stuff as you were about to. You really have you're not as old as you think you are, Drinno. Your brain went into overdrive there, mate. You were getting all those facts out. If you took me back to when I was in my teens now, I probably would need to. You really need to think about it because I used to remember a lot, but now it's hard sometimes to picture where you were when you were 15 or 16 or 17. So I'm impressed, John. I'm very impressed. Yeah, so you made your kind of your move into senior cricket, and you're right. You had 2 games against a touring Pakistani side. That must have been. I mean, what age would you have been then? Still young.
yeah, that was 88. I'm not good at maths, Shaky, but
Yeah, so you would have been,
it was,
20,
I'm
23,
50.
22, 23.
Yeah, something like that. I'm 53 this year.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. So, and it was funny. It was off the back of a couple of weeks. I was just telling the story to a mate of mine today. A couple of weeks prior to that, I had a little bit of a breakdown in the academy. My back was giving me some, and I lost my way a little bit, and
yeah,
walked out of a net one day and smashed my bat against the net and went and sat out in the middle of the second number 2. And
yeah,
yeah, just yeah, I was struggling with injury
yeah.
and pretty worn out and whatnot. And then I sat in an armchair for 2 weeks with a guy by the name of Graham Winter, and did a bit of rebuilding and I don't know what they call it, bit of psychology stuff and
Yeah,
whatnot. And
yeah, yeah.
it was only a week or two after that I played these couple of games for Queensland, my first games. So it sort of played a big part, this sort of story, in respect of my coaching,
Yeah.
because it makes me realise how important, the frame of mind and, how things work
Mm-hmm.
in respect of that. And, to have the ability to bounce back after that little moment and play those games was pretty special, to be perfectly honest. And that was against some cracking teams.
Where were the games? Where were the games played?
In Mackay, North Queensland.
Okay.
And Queensland v Pakistan, and their side was pretty amazing side when you look at it now. The captain by Javed Miandad, Imran Khan, young Waqar Yunus,
Wow.
Wasim Akram. Oh, it was, for
Oh,
a young fellow like
I
myself.
remember that year, Drinno, because Wasim Akram, I remember bowling at Mark Taylor in the Test, 87, 88, and he was
Yeah.
scary quick. So you played against that, but continue. Tell me about those games.
Yeah, look, we beat them on the first day, and we snuck up, and we had a good side. Alan Border was our captain, and we had a good side out. And so I felt incredibly privileged to be involved. You know what I mean? As a young fella and being amongst these players, it was it was daunting, but it was, I was in awe of a lot of these players. I'd watched them on TV and whatnot, so it was incredibly exciting. I probably got a few autographs as well, Shaky, while I was up there. So, it was a wonderful experience for me. But I tell a story about Wasm. I only had about 2 or 3 overs at the back end to bat.
Yeah.
Wasm, he come around the wicket, come into your body.
Yeah.
Mate, I wasn't lining up. It was far too quick for me. So I was going. I reckon I must have been close to the umpire. I've tried to hit him over cover, and before I got into the back, if the stumps were on their way. So I tell that story, but I only had to nick it, Shaky, and probably would have been one bounce for, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
I bet.
But no, it was a great experience, mate. Great experience, and as I said, I felt very privileged.
We've not touched on this yet, but you were obviously, Drinno, from what I know of you, you were a keeper batsman. So were you keeping in those games then?
Yeah, I was keeping in those games. Yeah, I think Heels must have been away somewhere, or because I think Heels was the number.
Ian Healy was
number
on
one.
duty. I think he was probably getting ready for the Test matches or the ODIs.
Yeah,
So he was with the squad. You were brought in. You were in main competition when Ian Healy was away with a guy called Peter Anderson at that time.
Yeah, because Ando was in Adelaide the same year as I was in Adelaide with the academy.
Okay.
So we were down there. So that's why I played for Queensland that same year, because Ando was down in Adelaide playing for South Australia. Ando was a wonderful man and a wonderful keeper.
Yeah.
Fantastic, really special. and we still keep in touch a little bit now via the social media and whatnot. But a tremendous keeper, Shaky, and he returned back the same year I returned back to
Okay.
Queensland, and Heels was moving along down the Australian road there,
Yeah.
and then sort of Ando come in front of me there. So yeah, it was a shame for Ando in respect of his progress, because he broke his thumb keeping the both of them over in Perth,
All right. Okay.
and that was a bit of a bummer for him. But yeah, look, again, there's three of us in the squad at that time, and it was a lot of fun training with these guys, because obviously they're very, very good keepers.
Yeah.
But no, that's why I was playing there, because Ando was still down south, and he must have been on Oz duty, which gave me the opportunity. You know, as a keeper, it's all about opportunity, Shaky, and just making sure you're ready when that opportunity presents, and it's all about timing. And unfortunately, I suppose there was a few good keepers around that, but that's the way it
Yeah.
is, mate. That's just the way it is.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of
I just love it.
speaking of the keepers
I just love training with these guys.
Sorry. Speaking of the keepers around you, Ian Healy, many say probably the best gloveman, best gloveman Australia might have ever produced, and as just a natural gloveman. I mean, I was watching a bit of footage the other day, and him stumping down the leg side, and he was just he was a world apart from most other wicket keepers.
Yeah, he was phenomenal, fantastic. I think the thing with Heels, and I'm still very close to Heels now. My wife actually works for Ian,
Oh,
so
right.
yeah, and it's just down the road, so we catch up a little bit.
Okay, good stuff.
And yeah, his work ethic was phenomenal, and I think that's something that obviously moved him forward quickly in respect of his game, and he became a phenomenal keeper, Shaky, and his record is special.
Yeah.
And when you're in the game that long, and a keeper's a hard role to play, not just with the gloves too. He's a handy bat, Shaky.
Yeah, no, he was.
And Heels, I can't speak highly enough of Heels, because he's just a great bloke, a tremendous bloke.
You must have learned. You
and
must have. It must have really been amazing to, because I'm assuming when he was back in duty for Queensland, you would do a bit of work together and do a bit, it must have been amazing to kind of see him close up.
We worked a lot together in the squad, and I was a youngster then. I suppose early 20s, but to be working with Peter Anderson and Ian Healy, pretty special. You know what I mean? You didn't need coaches; you just need to work with these guys, and that'd help you along the way. So I learned a lot from them, mate. Absolutely.
Moving on, Drinno, one of your highlights of your career, you debuted against South Australia, and you scored a fine 74 and 124-run partnership for the 7th wicket, which is a record, with Greg Ritchie. Talk to me about that. Talk to me about that day. You were obviously in a bit of trouble there, 7 down.
Yeah, look, I'm not sure how you define the innings, Shaky, whether you define it as a good innings or not. I think it went for about 7 hours, mate. I think it was about 400 balls. I don't know, but it was something crazy, and probably a lot of people left the stadium and went home, mate. I don't know, but yeah, it certainly wasn't a sparkling innings, that's for sure. And it was funny, because we were playing in South Australia. I remember I was in South Australia at the time. I was training with these guys, Hooksy and Sleepy and Tim May and these guys. I played club cricket with Tim May.
Yeah.
So I knew all these guys very, very well. And here I am out there. I've got to be careful with my language here, but I'm blocking what out of it, for a long period. But the game, probably needed that at the time. Fat Cat at the other end, he is a phenomenal player, and he got 100 at the other end while I sort of hung in there. And we managed to get the innings back on track, I suppose. And then I think we ended up taking points out the game. And I think all the day, I often talk to Carl Rackham, and a fair bit about this, or Carl talks to me. He says, Drinno, that last wicket partnership, mate, that was a beauty, wasn't it? I said, yeah, because of you more than me. I think he got 30 odd in it, and I just hung in there.
Yeah.
And yeah, so look, it was, yeah, Shaky. Look, I was probably a bit limited there, but I suppose I was pretty determined, mate. I didn't want to give that wicket away. I got out in the first ball of the third new ball. There you go.
Oh, so you went through a couple of new balls. So how many balls? How many balls did you face in that innings then, Drinno? Do you remember?
I think I could be wrong here, Shaky. I could be wrong. I think it was 401, but maybe there's that numbers right. Might be wrong there. No, I might be wrong. I could be wrong there, Shaky. Check it out, mate. Check it out. I could be way wrong.
I'll do some digging, but put it this way: if you went through 2 no balls, it must have been a fair amount of balls that you faced there. So you can't have been far off.
I don't know, but I think at the time it was the third slowest 50. So I don't know whether you raise the bat for or tuck the bat. I don't know what you do there. I don't know. I don't know whether I claim that or not. So, but it wasn't. Look, I loved every minute of it. I loved every minute of it, and the game's changed a lot, hasn't it? The game changed a lot.
No, absolutely. And, I think you would get. I think you get chased off the pitch. I think the crowd would chase you off the pitch now if you tried to bat that long.
I think so, Shaky. They would have run me out before then. They would have run me out. So, yeah.
Drinno, sad to say, in the end, you only played 5 first-class games. Injury was a big factor in your career. Was that your back again? Was that your back injury? Was it just not something that you could physio or anything?
Yeah. No, look. The story behind that, Jackie, was when I went to Adelaide in '88.
Yeah.
I actually hurt my back here in Brisbane before I went down on the building site.
Okay.
So down I went to Adelaide, and it was diagnosed down there. I'll never forget this, and I haven't got a great memory, but a guy by the name of Dr. Howelbach, he diagnosed it as, probably shouldn't have mentioned that, but anyway, he diagnosed it as early onset of arthritis.
Right. Okay.
And I've just got to get on with it and live with it. And I took a lot of anti-inflammatories and whatnot to get through the games and to try and get on the park in as good a shape as I could. And that started back in '88. And then what it actually was a herniated disc. And the disc kept breaking away, I suppose, on the medical terms. But then I kept breaking down, and then I'd rest for a bit, and I'd come back and play again, take a lot more drugs to get me through. Mm-hmm. And then in the end, from what I remember, it really completely broke away, and it jammed my spinal cord. And I was in a little bit of trouble for a couple of weeks. I was in a wheelchair for a couple of weeks and couldn't walk. I remember my dad was carrying me to bed, and I was a little bit messed up for a couple of weeks there before the operation. And it gave me a little bit of a fright, to be honest with you. So then I went in and had it operated on, and then I come out the other end of it fantastic, mate. I was like a new person, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Had it fused and whatnot, and went back to the farm. I had to go back to the farm for about 5 months. I had to learn to walk again. I was living at Chapel Hill over in the other side of town, and I had my mum with me, and she used to hold my hand. I used to walk 20 metres one day, 30 metres the next, and down to the corner. And it took me back to the farm when I could fly, and then I spent probably 3 or 4 months walking around the farm, trying to get going again. And then, oh goodness, as I said, I lose track of time. But I come back to play, but I never went back to, play at the level I did previously. I got offered a coaching contract out in the country, in the Ipswich region. And I suppose I wasn't brave enough, Shaky, to be honest with you. I don't know whether I regret it or not going back and trying to play again properly. Don't get me wrong, I loved the time I went out in the country, and I enjoyed playing out there, definitely. But whether I should have tried to play again at the higher levels, I don't know. I chose not to. And that's where my coaching started, to be honest. I took up this player coach role, and and again, not taking nothing away from the playing, but once you take up a coaching role, your game starts to just take a little bit of a back seat.
Yeah.
And that's how that's how I moved into the coaching side of things. I focused on the other players in the team and made sure, they were prepared well, and didn't give, my game perhaps the attention it needed. So obviously it starts to slide a bit. But this is the years through the mid-90s, through the 90s and early 2000s. But I was very fortunate that I was still playing overseas. I was with the Force and playing over there. So I was still getting,
we're going to
some good
come into
good
that.
cricket over there.
So what year was it you headed over to Scotland, Drinno?
Well, look, my first trip overseas was 1990. I went over with a good mate of mine, Scott Prestidge, which is a bunch of guys from New South Wales, and I played in the Central Lancs League.
Yeah.
Milton. I played Ribblesdale Wanderers.
Okay.
And the pro amateur there, the pro was Gary Yates. Remember the off spinner, Gary Yates, Lancashire?
Yeah, we're going to come on to that. Is that not the guy that was coaching the A team when we beat them?
Yes, I think it was. You're 100% right. Yes, it was Shaky.
We'll talk about that down the line, because that was quite a funny
good
day.
Man.
But so you played in the Lancashire, you played in the Lancs League. How was that for you? Did you enjoy your time there?
That was, yeah, absolutely. So that was essential. That was Ribblesdale League. And then 2 years after that, 92, I went back and played for Milnrow in the Central Leagues with another mate of mine, Jeff Foley. And during that was 92. Yeah. And then 93, I think 93 was when I had the back issue. I think that might have been perhaps, may have had the op in that year. And then 94, the reason I'm umming and ahhing, Jake, because I didn't think I'd come back that quickly, but maybe I can't remember now. But 94 is when I went over again to play for Milnrow again in the Central Lancs. And I remember working in a factory down there. I'll never forget it. And a guy by the name of Dave Gilbert, Lizard. Remember Dave Gilbert? He played for Australia. I'm sure Lizard played for Australia.
I recognise the name. Refresh my memory, do some research.
And I got this call because he was working for Queensland Cricket at the time. And I got this call out of the blue. Do you know there's a job going up in Scotland? Do you fancy it? Well, I never really wanted to be a pro, Shaky, because when you're a keeper bat, you can't really do the job that a good pro wants to get a few overs out, don't they? And I thought, I said, Lizard, I'm happy to do it, but I want to go up there and coach. I want to coach and do that sort of stuff, and I feel as though my value will be worth it. You know what I mean? Than just proing. I was uncomfortable with just proing.
Yeah.
So he said, no, that's what it's about. He says they've contacted me and they want someone to come up there and set up a junior setup and get more kids involved in the game in and around the area. And I thought, well, that's what I'm doing here in Queensland at the time, and that sounds like a real good gig. So yeah, I'm keen. So jumped in my little Vauxhall and off I went. Never been up there before.
Yeah.
And Dick Auchinleck, a very, very dear friend of mine, met me at the service.
Good man. He's a good man.
Yeah, he's a very good man. He met me at the sort of lay-by near the BP servo on the north side of Dundee.
Yeah.
There, and took me in, and that was the start of my time at the Force.
Yeah.
So and there's a lot of good times there, Shaky.
My first memory of coming across you, Drinno, was actually playing against you. I would have been 13 maybe at the time. I came to my first visit to Forfarshire Cricket Club. Lovely sunny day. I remember it well. Playing for Clydesdale, so we had your Rennie Key, Greg Williamson. Our pro at the time was a guy called Sangram Sawan. It was just the one season we had him, an Indian batsman. And I'll never forget that day. As we were batting, there was this guy standing up to all the bowlers. And I'd never seen anything like this before. and you were taking stuff down the leg side, you're taking stuff. You were obviously, like you're saying, it was hard for a pro to influence a game, so you were trying to influence a game behind the wickets by trying to take a sharp stumping or something, but you stood up to all the bowlers. You actually made 70 that day as well, Drinno. You got about,
Yeah.
yeah, you ran it. I remember in particular, you were really good at running the ball down to third man. You kept running the ball down to third man, nicking wee singles.
I only scored behind square, Shaky. He only scored behind square, mate.
So, that was my first time of seeing you. You look like a really gritty kind of cricketer to me. And then I never seen you again for a couple of years, and it wasn't until you came into kind of a technical development role with Cricket Scotland that I started getting the pleasure to work with you and started to build a relationship with you. So I mean, it was times like you came out to the HPC ICC Academy. You came out and spent a bit of time out there, so we had a bit of time out there together. I mean, that must have been a good time for you to kind of be around other coaches. I think Big Phil Simmons was out there at that point as well. There was the Kenyan coach, the Great West Indian, or Baptiste, I think his name was. He was there.
Okay, yeah.
So how did you? That must have been a good experience for you as a coach to come in and bounce ideas off other coaches.
Yeah, look, Shaky, look, I was in Scotland there, oh goodness, over a period of 9-10 years, and then once I moved into that full-time role in 2003 through to 2008, I got more involved with the ICC and the ECC, the International Cricket Council, European Cricket Council, and I think Richard Doan was in charge then of the high performance program.
Yeah.
And the opportunities that were available at that time, and through all my time over there, I loved it over there as a coach. There were so many diverse opportunities. Although I was working in Scotland, you might get an opportunity. I did some workshops in Denmark and across in the Netherlands even before I went there full time. Mate, I was spent a lot of time in the UK or in England, down there in and around the counties, and so much opportunity for a coach over there. So I loved it. And then you're talking about getting down to, we spent that time down in South Africa, wasn't it? Down at those camps down in South Africa. Pretoria, that's right. So, South Africa became a very accessible place for us to take players and prepare players. And I continued on with that after my involvement in Scotland with the Netherlands, because I think it's a wonderful place to go and, train and play cricket, facilities, the way they go about it. And like you said, rubbing shoulders with some of those coaches. And to be honest, Jakey, back then I was still a young coach learning the ropes. I'm still learning now, but, I was really, taking it all in and watching how these guys go about it. And it was a wonderful opportunity. You did right. And I got very close.
You were doing a fair few laps. You were doing a fair few laps in the pool. I remember you used to go fairly up that. You fairly used to get your lengths done in that swimming pool. Yeah,
look, that started from my back, mate. You know what I mean? I'm not a runner. I hate running, and I had to do something to help the back, and that was suggested to me. I'm no swimmer, mate, but I still try and do a bit now, just to try and stay in shape and keep the back mobile. But that's what the swimming's about. It's a bit cold here now, Shaky, to get in the pool. So,
have you got a pool? That's like a given.
Yeah, just here, mate.
Oh.
Yeah, it's just here. It's just here. So, no, very fortunate, man. Very fortunate. We live in a beautiful place in the world, and I've got a very, very nice place here, close to the city. Just 3 k's from the city, so got quite a big yard. I've got an 800 block and a big yard for the kids to run around. I've got a cricket net in the backyard, and I've got a soccer net in the backyard. So it gives the kids an opportunity to do a bit of stuff. So very fortunate, mate. Very fortunate. So
you made the right decision, I think, going back over there. Otherwise, they would have been cooped up inside most of the year if you'd stayed over in sunny Scotland. But just going back to Forfarshire, I know a few boys. I'm still friends with a few boys now from Forfarshire. One boy in particular who came through kind of junior ranks for me was Umair Mohammed. and I know he talks really highly of your time at Forfarshire. You had a massive influence. I don't know if you did a bit of work with Craig Wallace as well, who's now coming through as a super batsman and looking like a talent, you know, a potential real talent for Scotland moving forward. Do you remember working with these guys?
Very much, Shaky. Very much. Look, my days at the Forks, mate, wonderful memories, mate. Wonderful memories. There was about 7 or 8 young players that sort of come through all together, and they become very, very close mates. And I remember when I was leaving, they come and we had a get together. I can't remember exactly where that was, but they were all there, and they presented myself and Lindsay with this little Scottish jersey. It was about this big. I had one. I left to go to the Netherlands in late 2007, and might have been early 2008. Okay, and my first son was born on the 24th of December 2007. So I mean, he was only quite new. So they brought me this little Scotland rugby jersey, and it was about this big, and presented it to us. And you know, that was the relationship we had. You know, these lads didn't have to do that, and they were growing into young men at this stage. You can imagine. And you know, that was I had them from 2004, so that was 6 and 7. That's 13 years. So I had Craig Wallace from 4. He was with me from 4, age 4. He was little and stocky, and his older brother Andrew was a little taller and sort of different build. And young Craig, he used to get in there and mix it. I remember he was always a tough cookie. And he was always that determination and that real will. He had it, you know. And so I had him, you know, I don't know, 3, 4 years. But he, 4 years old, he started with me there at the Force, I think, around about then. And Umi, Robert Cannon, John Finlay, LJ, Dean Ferns, you know, this bunch of guys. I'm going to miss 1 or 2, and I feel bad. I hope they're not listening. But Neil Martin, but all these guys, I got very close to. You know what I mean? And I just we used to go away to these quick cricket tournaments, Shaky, around Scotland. And we used to pile in. The parents used to get them all in the cars, and away we'd go to Stirling, Arbroath, or wherever it was. And I think I started a little tournament in and amongst the clubs up there, you know, Meagle and Arbroath and Strathmore and whatnot. And, you know, we created these little competitions, and all the boys used to get to play together. And you know, so they had their foundation of the game, I suppose. And, you know, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, and a lot of fun for me as a young coach. And it's fantastic to see them come through. And Umi's done tremendous, hasn't he? He's got a beautiful wife and youngster now, and he had a wonderful year leading the Force last year, winning everything. I think.
Well, you must be.
You know, so
it's good to see that you're still following it, Drinno, because you must be quite proud. I mean, Craig Wallace has gone on to be a you know, full international now. He's a cap player, probably still chapping it. Probably not completely cemented his place in the side, but he's certainly chapping the door. Umi, very successful Forfarshire, taking the titles last year. They won pretty much everything. So you must be, you know, there's a lot of credit goes to you as well for, you know, being part of their upbringing. I know from talking to them, especially Umi, who I'm still in touch with. He always talks very highly of his time working with you. I think you gave him his only cap as well. I think he came into the national team when he finally found that those little medium pacers were probably not going to take his career very far. He started bowling that very, you know, probably was the biggest turner of the ball in Scotland at that point. Maybe not as good as Matty with control, but he would turn it big, and you gave him his opportunity to come into the national team. I think it was in the European Championships. So you know, great times. I want to move into my time working with you, which was in particular, we had been allowed to be included into the second 11 actual championship trophy. So it wasn't just going down and playing against a friendly, against a second team who you would get licorice all sorts turning up to play against you. We were playing in an actual championship, and let's be honest, most of the sides we played against were probably 75% a first team, and then a small percent, you know, 30% second team. So I remember we played our first game against Derbyshire. I don't know if you remember this. We got bullied by Derbyshire. I mean, I remember getting bowled off it hit me in the arm. I walked off my arm feeling like it was hanging off. And I'll never forget, I thought my arm was ready to fall off, and as I came off, you were just laughing at me, and I was a bit upset with you at that point. And you were just like, Shaky, you know, is your arm falling off? Is it needing amputated? And I was like, Drinno, leave me alone. My arm's in serious. About half an hour later, I realised my arm was actually fine. You know, just a nasty bruise. And I'll never forget, you kind of took us into the changing room after that game, and you were just like, right, you're gonna need to toughen up. I mean, you had a very good core of players there. I mean, there was myself, Majid Haq, Omar Hussein, Richie Berrington. You know, that's just to name a few. Gregor Maiden, Simon Smith. You know, lots of Stephen Knox was still playing for our team. We had Neil McRae, who was still involved with the setup. And you gave us a bit of a stern talking to and just said, look, you know, that was you know, you got bullied there, and you know, if we're gonna compete, you know, you need to toughen up. And I remember we came down to play Lancashire at Alderley Edge. I think it was 2 games later. We played Notts in between, and we performed a little bit better against Notts, but we got a bit of a hiding again. We came down to play a very strong Lancashire team at Alderley Edge. Do you remember that game?
No, I remember one game. I'll let you go about this one. I reckon it was.
I know what game you'll remember. We can talk about that one afterwards.
We got done over there, Shaky.
Yeah,
we should have done them there.
We got done over. We played Lancashire the game before, Drinno, and we bowled them out in the first innings for around, I think it was about 280, and we went out to bat, and that was probably one of my proudest days playing for my country. I scored 110 in the first innings for Scotland. We got a bit of a lead, and then it was just a great game. It went down to the wire, end of the day 3, and you know, we won the game pretty much right at the end of day 3. We sang "O Flower of Scotland" in the changing room. What you maybe remember is Richie Berrington had taken ill, so he was in the changing room. And
did I have to leave? Did I have to take? I left the game, Shaky, because I had to take someone to hospital or someone to the doctor.
That was Neil McRae.
You got someone. Was it? Because someone got 100 or batted for ages whilst I was away. They kept batting. They did so well.
So
was that the next game? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, so we beat Lancs, but what I remember about the Lancs game is your mate there that you were talking about, Mr. Yates. Me and you used to travel most of the time together. I used to drive down with you. I used to share a bit of driving with you. We used to go up and down that motorway, you know, constantly. We were away pretty much every week for about 6 weeks.
Was that was in the Jag, wasn't it? That's when the Jag, Cricket Scotland had the sponsorship with Jag.
We got into the Jag and we pulled up to kind of the junction to leave to get on the motorway. And Yates, was it Gary Yates? He pulled up next to us, and you kind of gave, and he said, "Drinno, you boys, I'm telling you." And it was actually interesting that I'd said to you, "Drinno, can you try and have a word with him, because I would like to try and get into a county now." And you know, I'm getting a couple of runs here. And you contacted him, and he did. We had some conversations back and forward, but he was very honest with me and had told me that, look, Lancashire have just signed Matthias Muralitharan. We've got, you know, high-profile players. They're more putting their investment into the academy players coming through. They're just not, contracts are few and far between. Unfortunately, it didn't go anywhere. But then we moved forward into probably one of the famous games. We played Yorkshire down at Stamford Bridge. Now, Yorkshire again turned up with a star-studded team, flat track. I think they hit us for 400 on day 1. I came on to bowl in that game about 7th change, managed to get a few poles, and you know, we were thinking, oh, we're getting battered here. We came out to bat. We did okay. Myself and Neil McRae got 50. I got 97. Got out just at the end. But the time that you remember is Neil McRae got hit in the head of Ajmal Shazad. Flush into the side of the head. Okay. So you left the ground with Neil McRae, took him to hospital, and the brave man that Neil McRae is, he came back and went out to bat for us at the end again, probably for about another half an hour, 45 minutes to kind of get our score back on. But do you remember that then? You know, taking Macca up to the hospital.
I do, absolutely, and I remember us hanging in, and there was something to do with light. And then they got one last over in or something, Shaky. So and they shouldn't have, or something happened.
So what ends up happening, Drinno, is we have to follow on in the first innings. We go out to bat and we're like 20 for 5. Second innings, and Ross Lyons and Omar Hussein get hundreds. out of nowhere.
Yeah,
We're like
that's right.
we're like 7 or 8 down.
Ross.
Ross Lyons gets 100, Omar gets 100, and we get a lead of about 170. And we basically, in the last day's play, had Yorkshire in a bit of trouble. We had them about 6 or 7 down. And you're right.
Yeah.
I was controlling things in the last hour that we bowled 17 overs, and that was it. If we had
Yeah.
only bowled the 17 overs, it would have been a drawn match. But the
That's
umpire
right.
was getting really upset with me, kept calling me over and saying, you need to bowl another over. And I said, well, I don't need to bowl another over. And he forced us to bowl another over. It's the angriest I've ever seen you as a coach, because they got the runs in that 18th over. We walked off the pitch. Another thing that happened in that game was, Drinno, the end of day 2, their coach and their team had a real pop at us, and they were saying stuff like to the groundsman, can we get this wicket for a net tomorrow when the game finishes at lunchtime? And we used that, and I remember, to really get wound up and say, we'll see about that. But me and you called me in, you took me to the side and you went, why did you bowl the 18th over? And I said, I didn't have any choice. The umpire was forcing me to bowl it. And you went, right, come with me. We marched round the back. You had a chat at the umpire's door, and you were like, you're a cheat. You've cheated us here today. You know, it's not. And the guy knew it. He knew it. I actually bumped into him a few times since, but he did us wrong that day.
Oh, we'd done the numbers. I'd done the numbers. And I knew what was required, Shaky, and you'd done it perfectly.
Yeah.
So I can't believe I wouldn't have called anyone a cheat, Shaky.
I don't know about that.
I believe I was upset. Yes.
Yeah,
I think,
slightly upset. Right.
Well, I think, you know, after you know, the effort that the boys had put in, you know, that was phenomenal. And I got back when I think Ross was on about 96, 92, 94, 96, somewhere in that. So I saw him get his 100, and Omar getting 100, which, you know, he was a special talent. You know, I had so much time for Omar, and you know, still got plenty of time for him. But I mean, you know, as a player, he was a phenomenal player, I thought.
Yeah.
And Ross, you know, you wouldn't expect 100 from Ross.
Yeah.
And, you know, for them two to step up to the plate, you know, against a good side under pressure, you know, I think that's what probably angered me so much, is just the commitment, the effort that the boys had put in. They didn't deserve that, you know. I think that's probably what I was so disappointed about. We deserve, well, the boys deserve better out of that game, definitely. But anyway,
I went on to play club cricket with a few boys that played for Yorkshire that day. They had a leg spinner called Mark Lawson, and a couple of their boys got basically fined, and action was taken against them by Yorkshire after that, because I don't know if you remember, they kept calling us 9-to-5s, and you boys are just 9-to-5.
Yeah.
And after that, a couple of them basically got into a bit of trouble. And there was a nice moment as well. Mark Wood, it was, who played quite a bit of cricket for Yorkshire one day in Manchester.
Yeah.
He came into our changing room, and he commended our efforts and you know, applauded us and said, you boys are a really good cricket team, and you should be proud of what you've done in these last 3 days. So, you know, it was a tough pill to swallow, and we were all pretty gutted. But what a great game of cricket it was. I mean, boys showed a lot of heart in that game. You as coach, you know, certainly brought the best out of me as a cricketer. I really, you know, enjoyed working with you at that time. And where you improved me as a coach was the mental side of the game. You didn't really. I was never the most technically correct batsman. There was a lot of little technical faults in my game. But one thing I had was a strong mind, and a lot of that came from that time working with you, Drinno, because, you know, to go on and get hundreds like that against county opposition, and go on and get a couple of hundreds from a country national team honours, I give a lot of that credit to you, because you were all about, you've got to be tough, you've got to get through these tough times, these tough moments. And I certainly, you know, appreciate the time that I spent with you during that time. Unfortunately, we'll go on to talk. You went on to get the national team job, which I was over the moon to hear. And you never ever threw the caps out either. I mean, I used to be moaning at you every drive down the road, saying, Drinno, when am I getting my chance? When am I getting my chance? And you were saying, just keep knocking the door. Just keep knocking the door. 2007 World Cup, you took Scotland out to the Caribbean. Now, this is coming towards kind of the time where your relationship with Scotland was coming closer to the end. it wasn't a very successful campaign. I'm sure you'll be honest enough to say. Don't get me wrong, you got drawn against two very tough teams in Australia and South Africa. But talk to me about the whole experience, the squad, and you know what you felt going into that tournament.
Well, look, it was an interesting period, Shaky, because that sort of period started for me back in 2006. I got married in 2006. I was back here in Australia, and I got the call from Roddy Smith, and said, you know, Andy Moles was a coach at that point, and you know, for whatever reason, you know, they were moving down a different road there with the coach, and Roddy rang me and said, I was technical director, I think, at that time, and he said, would you be interested in stepping up to the national job? And you know, I didn't give it any thought. I wasn't on that. Again, as I said earlier, my coaching career has evolved. I was not on a pathway or a mission to coach the Scotland national team. Not at all. I was just, you know, doing my job, doing the best I could, and then I got this call from Roddy, and yeah, okay, yeah, what's it involved? And we had that conversation, and 2000 March 2006 across to Barbados we went and prepared over there for that 2007 World Cup. And look, that year 2006 we had a pretty good time of it, and then January 2007 Nairobi, I think, T20 qualification, first T20, okay, we qualified. I think we snuck home. I think we might have stuck ahead of Ireland there. They were always our competitors, obviously, and it was the first time, I think it's the first T20, and we qualified for it down in South Africa, and that was in January. And then it was a World Cup in March, I think. It was the World Cup, or it was later in the year, I can't remember. But then away we went to the World Cup. So, you know, we'd had quite a bit of success leading up, so we're in reasonable shape. Obviously a different format, but then we were going into the 50s for this 2007 World Cup, and it wasn't a good tournament. Preparation was fine and whatnot, but no, we didn't play very well, and yeah, it was a shame for whatever reason. The opposition was strong, but our game that we should have performed better in was against the Dutch. And yeah, we didn't play very well, no doubt about it. So it was a poor tournament. And then off the back of that, you know, I come home and I did a full report, and I felt that, you know, there was a need, obviously, once you have a phase where you may deem as, you know, not as successful as you wanted it, although, you know, as I said, 6 months earlier, we had a pretty good time. You know, you've always got to look and see where improvement can be made and if there needs to be changes made. So I laid it out there that I felt that there should be some consideration given to changes moving forward, and we should look at the introduction of a few younger players, perhaps. And young Richie Berrington was knocking on the door then, I think, and obviously, you know, yourself, and there was a few players about, and just thinking of Richie. Then Richie just had his first kid. Sorry to diverse there, but many congrats to Rich. It was wonderful, exciting for him. Beautiful.
He's still undecided. He's still not announced a name, Drinno. I don't know if you remember Richie well, but it's bloody hard to get him to make a decision on anything. So I messaged him the other day saying, I take it it's you that's delaying the name, and he said, yeah, mate, you know me too well.
Richie, a tremendous fella and a good cricketer.
Yeah.
Yeah, we won't tell stories about Richie, but he's a good cricketer. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, off the back of that report and maybe the suggestion of change, it wasn't received all that well, I don't think, by certainly some of the players moving forward. And look, Jakey, to be honest, looking back on it, I learned a lot from that time, post World Cup, and I would have done things perhaps differently, you know, looking back. And I talk about that period in Scotland when, I suppose I got the boot there and was asked to move on and whatnot. And you know, it's always difficult, you know, when a coach, you know, loses his position, and that's what coaching's about, isn't it? You know what I mean? But it's also very disappointing at the time, and yeah, I was gutted. You know what I mean? I love Scotland. I felt I was very close to the players and you know, close to my squad, and I valued them, you know, and all that sort of stuff. So to hear that, you know, there are a few that perhaps weren't happy, you know, I was pretty devastated, to be perfectly honest. But you know, reflecting back on that, you know, years gone by, as I do now, I think, well, I've taken a lot out of that. I learned. I'd handle things a little differently, and you know, it was a good phase for me as far as building me as a coach, and you know, me learning more about how to go about things. Look, Shaky, back then I was probably a little bit too blinkered, or a little bit, you know, my way, the highway, or you know, this is it. And you know, we're all different, aren't we? We're all different, and you know, respecting the individual and what the individual brings to the table is so important. And accepting, you know, those for who they are. And I've, you know, got a saying that you've got to get to know the person before you can coach the player. And I think back then, that time, I didn't do that very well. So, you know, I took a lot out of that experience, as hard as it was at the time, and transferred that, hopefully, moving forward into my other jobs. And I'd like to think that, you know, I'm a bit better for that experience, to be honest.
No, good. I mean, that's what it's all about, Drinno. You've obviously, you can assess things as you go along, but at the time, it's hard to, when you're in the situation. It's I can totally relate to you on that. Like early days of captaincy and stuff like that, I was definitely not the captain I can be now, because I was quite, you know, this is how I'm going to do it and that's it. But you need to get the best out of people. You need to learn how to, you know, somebody's character might be a little bit different to another guy's character, so you need to learn to adjust things. So obviously, you know, the experience stood you in good stead, because somebody, you know, the Dutch seen something in you. They obviously seen something they liked, and one door closed and another door opened, and you made the move from Scotland over to the Netherlands. Obviously, you were uprooting at that point your family, young son as well at that time, one child. So off you went. How is that for you as a family and everything to make that move?
Look, it was quite significant, to be honest. We'd obviously spent quite a lot of time in Scotland. Me starting back there in '94, meeting my wife there, and obviously her parents were there. So, you know, to take her away, although it was just across the water, it wasn't too far. It's still, you know, it was away from the parents. So it was quite a significant move. And you know, I had good help from a very dear friend of mine, Roland Lefevre, who we became very, very close, and he helped me with that transition and the move. But I suppose it was fantastic because it wasn't that big move like back to Australia then, Shaky, because, you know, we'd only been a couple of years or a year married, and, you know, it's still very early on. So just to move away to the Netherlands was a good thing, you know. The move had been made, but it wasn't significant because, you know, it was only an hour flight and whatnot. We could go backwards and forwards, and, you know, we both had a lot of dear friends and still have, obviously, in the UK. And, you know, as I said, it was easy for us. I could still, I was in the process, or I think I finished just my level 4 course. I started in 2006. I finished that in 2008. So, you know, I was still going backwards and forwards. I was doing more personal development, you know, different add-ons to the level 4, so I could shoot across there. So there was still so many links between the UK and where we were going in the Netherlands. And then the Netherlands were obviously playing in the county competitions. So again, I was across the water often, catching up with sort of old friends and whatnot very, very often. And, you know, it was a good move. It was an exciting move for me. Having, as I said, just learnt from my previous experience, I felt I was probably a little better equipped, had a few more skills to go into this new role, and I was really excited about it. I had an older squad when I was moving into the role in Holland, so you know, my job with I had 2 teams in Holland. You know what I mean? The first 3 years was under the guidance of Jeroen Smits, you know, a very dear friend and a wonderful captain, a wonderful leader.
Hmm.
And then, you know, as a senior team, you know, the Edgar Shifleys, the Darren Reekers, and, you know, there's some older players, the Baz Uterans, and these guys have been around the block quite a bit before I landed.
Yeah.
So they knew how to go about things. My job was really made very easy, to be honest, because Jeroen, he worked the team, he controlled the team, he managed his players extremely well. And you talk about a determined, leader.
Hmm.
Jeroen was wonderful. You know, incredibly competitive.
He was a nightmare. He was a nightmare to play against. God, I didn't like playing against him. He always he had a real knack to wind you up with behind the stumps. Obviously, Drinno, you went into an amazing time. As you say, it's nice to hear it was quite an easy transition. But, the senior players obviously welcomed you. Sometimes you can maybe experience a bit of you might be under a bit more pressure when you go into playing with, coaching senior players, because they might be really quite judgmental to you, put you under. But it sounds like, you were welcomed in and allowed to flourish in the role. And that obviously, got to be the highlight of your career, which came in the 2009 T20 World Cup. You led the Dutch team into a game against England at Lord's. Now, we all remember what happened that day, but you obviously defeated England at Lord's. Talk to me about that day and the emotions that you felt. I mean, it's got to be right up there.
Oh, shaky. Yeah, look, incredible day. We had a song. I suppose I'll start from the start, but again, very fortunate to have. The squad was a super squad, great bunch of blokes and quite experienced. We had some county boys in there with Tendo and young Alexa Kavazi, so Baz Suter, and these guys have been around the block. So the experience was great to have. Dirk Nannes had come on board.
Yeah, you picked them up for that tournament. Yeah.
So Dirk brings experience as well, and so he was a great guy. Oh, pace, serious pace.
Yeah.
I tell a story. We were training at the world's such a small world, the cricket world in particular. We were training at a school in London there for this tournament. I wish I could remember the school, but anyway. And a guy who was helping us on the day, just logistically, it's his school. He was coaching at the school. Was a guy by the name of Andre Berger.
Okay.
Now I work every day here beside Andre Berger here in Brisbane now at the same school. Amazing. Anyway, that day, Dirk, I knew of Dirk Nannes, but I'd met him a day or two earlier and delighted to have him on board.
Yep.
And I said, Dirk, first training run. What do you want, mate? What do you? He says, I'll just bowl a dozen balls if that's all right. Is that all you need? A dozen? He says, yeah, dozen balls, that's fine. That's all I need. You can have a bat. No, I'll just bowl a dozen balls. Okay. Where do you want to bowl them? He says, I'll just bowl them in here. There's a centre wicket there. Okay, what do you want? You want someone obviously to mitt them and whatnot? I'll mitt them because I'm trying to build a bit of a relationship with this new player who's just come on board.
Yeah.
So I get my mitt on, and out I go. And he says, I threw him a couple of older balls. He threw them back to me. He says, you got new ones? I said, yeah, I got new ones. I'll get new ones. Yeah, fair enough. Got new ones. I thought he was just going to idle in. You know what I mean? I'll be okay here. Oh, goodness. Jakey, it's as close as I've been to getting killed, I think, mitting the ball. I could mid okay, but he was seriously quick, New rock, ball moving, and I'm trying to line up the first one. I just got, and I thought, okay, I've got to be careful here. I'm in a bit of trouble here. I've got 11 balls to go. So I went back a few yards, and oh, goodness, those 11 balls, mate, were frightening for me. I'm trying, I probably could have been better with two hands, but he was seriously quick. And anyway, he added so much value to our environment. And I just saw him last year. He was commentating at one of the girls' games.
Yeah.
And it was so nice. It was so nice because he recognised me. I obviously recognised him, but he recognised me, which I didn't expect. And he said, Drinno, how you going? He was just about to talk on the TV. Yeah. And Dirk, how you going? And, it was fantastic to catch up. And he says, Drinno, that's been the best day of cricket in my life that day. And I
Wow.
thought, wow, that's pretty. He's played IPA, he's done it all, hasn't he?
Yeah, yeah.
I thought, wow, that's pretty amazing. Yeah. So look, I remember going for the stretch in the morning, shaky early. It's a funny day when you're playing late in the day.
Yeah.
It's a hard day to prepare for when you got so much emotion. First game of the tournament.
Hmm.
Um, so we went for the walk, and we did a strange thing in the middle of the day. We tried to learn the national anthem. That was pretty weird. Um, and with quite a few boys in there, weren't Dutch born and bred.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and so we went through that, and then away we went down to the ground. And something, we went down the ground in a certain tie, and it was a really nice feeling. We dressed up and I suppose formal gear, and I copped a bit of jip for some of this, getting the boys dressed in the old shirt and tie at times when we were going to World Cups. I thought it was, I just thought it looked the part.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, we're going to Lords, let's get the shirt and tie, and we went down there, and you feel a bit, you know,
No, I like it.
uh,
I
yeah,
certainly like it. I
yeah,
mean, especially at Lords, you would have looked the part turning up. You mean business. You're
yeah,
only going to be in the outfit for a short period of time, and then you'll get into your warm up gear. But no, I think it looks good to turn up like that. So I can see where you're coming from. But yeah, maybe some
yeah.
of them
So
felt like you were being a bit private school on them.
yeah, a little bit over top perhaps, but anyway, look, that was that, and down we went, and it was a funny day because it was wet, and look, from what I can remember, we had to warm up out on the nursery, and that was fine. We were only limited usage on the main oval, um, and then it was the start of the tournament. They had all the hoo ha going, and they pulled that off. They didn't do it because of the rain, and so it was all a little bit sort of disjointed. It was really quite hard preparation. But in the end, look, the guys are ready, and away they went. Again, I just can't sort of acknowledge our skipper enough. He's the man that us coaches. We try and do the best we can in the preparation and cover a few bases, but mate, it's all about the players. The players got to get it done on the day, and these boys, they went out there, and we were behind the eight ball for the first 10. I think we were getting a little bit pummeled there. They were 100 off 10, and to restrict them for 60 off the next 10 was something pretty special from our boys.
Hmm.
162 or 163, and then the halftime break was interesting. The skipper got in there and he stood up on the table in the dressing room, and he commanded the troops, and he says, "We're in this, boys. We're in this." And I remember Big Darren Reekers putting his arm around me, and he was up here and I'm
Yeah.
down here, and he says, "Drinno, Drinno, I'm shitting myself, Drinno." I said, "I'm with you, mate. I'm with you. So you don't have to worry." So it was just a great occasion for us. And out he went, and he got the tone going. He played a couple of big shots, and I hope I shouldn't use that language on here, Shaky, but that's what he said.
Yeah.
And they had the music playing there. Oh, God, Shaky, I'm not a music person, but I think it's Kings of Leon, the
Yeah.
song. Anyway, whenever that song comes on now, it brings back those memories. And that was cranked up, and the guys just the buzz, the emotion in that dressing room was just something I probably never experienced it again.
Yeah.
And then away we went, and I went from the bench to the room, to the bench, to the room, and I come back up, and we needed 60.
You were quite a
And
nervous
I was
watcher. I
sitting back,
remember you. You were quite a nervous watcher.
yeah, not good, Shaky, not good. And I'm sitting in the back of the bench there, and we were moving the batting order around a bit. We were keeping Tendo back a bit, and so there's a few things going on, but thought we had it under control to a point. And I went up in the dressing room, had to go for a quick walk, and here's Dirk Nannes up in the corner there. So funny. I said, "Dirkie, what are you doing?" He said, "Mate, I can't watch." And he was tucked away in the corner of the dressing room. And back I come again, and look, yeah, I'm not a good watcher, Shaky. So I
Yeah.
try and stay away from the players as best I can. The last thing they need is my excess sort of energy, if you know what I
Yeah.
mean. You do your best to stay calm in and around the environment, but that was a pretty big occasion.
Yeah.
And I remember my good mate Andy Lawson saying to me, we're about 60 out, and he says, "We could rock the cricket world here." That's
Yeah.
what he said to me. That's what he said. And we're
Yeah.
about 60 out.
Good man.
And,
I remember him well. I remember him
yeah.
well. Great man.
Yeah, good man. And he said that to me, and I just sat there shaky. I sat there, and then, as I said, we had to make a few more decisions with that order. And then Tommy de Groot played the innings of his life. And then Dan van Bunga, he only got 12 or 14, but just 2 or 3 magnificent cricket shots. Pete Boren put that one into the second tier over mid wicket. Just the no fear approach. The willingness to take the game on. I was in awe of these players. I think, gee whiz, this is pretty special. And oh mate, in the end, it was pretty wild. It was crazy. You tend to probably say you should have got it done a bit earlier. We didn't have a particularly good last over. But look, in the end, who cares, eh?
Stuart Broad certainly probably needed to work on his 10-pin bowling skills after that one where he missed those stumps at the end, and it was just all happening. I mean, it was such a moment. I mean, I remember watching it live, and it was what a moment. I mean, the emotions, you'll probably never get that kind of emotion again in your life of that, just being in that occasion, Lord's Cricket Ground, opening game of the World Cup. And I think you inspired a lot of people that day. The Dutch really did. They really inspired people far and wide with what they achieved against England. And I'll never forget the faces of the England players. I mean, they were shell shocked. They did not know. They didn't know what. They didn't know. They probably turned up thinking this will just be a. You probably felt that as well, seeing them seeing them in your eyes. They probably thought this will just be a, get ourselves into the tournament. Nice wee victory over the Dutch. Get ourselves into.
I think some of their selections, Shaky, were perhaps interesting, for that particular game, which you don't want to read too much into that. But that day before though, and I credit to our boys. Broad. Remember, Broad was coming around the wicket, going across.
Yeah, that's right.
And that was his tactic through that tournament. He was bowling white line across, coming around. We set up a bowling machine the day before. We set up a bowling machine. We had it going across. We had every batsman going through there working on it. So, credit to the boys. They just, they'd done their work. They deserved to get it done that night. They played really well. So it was a special day for everyone. And mate, it hangs on my wall here that day. Never forget it, mate.
Were you part of the pitch? Were you part of the pitch invasion? Were you on that?
Shaky, I didn't know what to do. I stood there. I was in the line. But then when they won, everyone shot off. But I stayed. Lawes was off, and I stayed. I didn't know what to do. And it was a bit weird, eh? It was a bit weird. And no, so I was a bit back in the run on. But no, I had my time with each and every one of them. It's no, it was, as I said, I didn't know what to do. It was, I don't think a coach runs on the field, do they? I don't know. I didn't know what to do. But that night, Shaky, we were there till midnight, eh? And the staff at the ground was so special. We were in the room for a long time. The attendant was just brilliant. I said, "Do you want us out? Do you want us out?" We were fortunate. We didn't have another game. We played Pakistan 2 or 3 days time, so we had plenty of time after. He said, "No, this is your day. You stay for as long as." We ended up going up to the kitchen about 11:30 that night. And if you've played at Lord's, the kitchen's pretty special. Mate, the whole kitchen staff, we were the only ones left in the ground. The whole kitchen staff was still on, and the whole menu was still on. It was unbelievable, Shaky. We've gone up there, and you think there might be a few bits and bobs left. They had waited, and we had this full meal. Okay, whatever we wanted. And it's about 11:30 that night. They'd all waited for us. Okay, they didn't hurry us. They didn't push us out the dress. Didn't do anything. They said, "This is your night, your ground." It was so amazing.
You got to enjoy the experience to the fullest.
Absolutely. Then we went back after that dinner. We went back to the hotel, and the whole hotel was full. full of orange, full of orange.
Brilliant.
And yeah, yeah, the Dutch, they know how to celebrate and have a
Yeah,
good time. And
yeah.
yeah, it was special, very special.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
getting goosebumps. I'm getting goosebumps talking to you about it. No, I just can't imagine how, I was so happy for you and all the Dutch players. But I mean, to hear you talk about it there, you can kind of get a little bit of a feeling of what the
Mm,
actual emotions were like afterwards. And you went on to play Pakistan, a very, very strong Pakistan team that went on to win the
mm.
competition. And I think their spinners, you got found out a little bit by their spin talent.
Yeah, Freddie. I think Freddie took 5, 6
Yeah,
wickets.
yeah.
Yeah, I think he did. Yeah, too good for us on that day.
I think you commented, and I remember you saying there was a big difference between Adil Rashid and Afridi at that time. There was a bit of a difference between the two bowlers.
Yeah, yeah. Look, it's hard to prepare, and this is what we found over the years to prepare against quality spinners and quality cricks. If you're not exposed to them a lot in the associate world, you don't come up against that
Yeah.
extra few mile an hour or that real quality spinner. Muralitharan, sort of took us apart in 2006 in Barbados in preparation when we played Sri Lanka there, and the boys just didn't have an answer, but they didn't have time to work it out because you're in a shortened version. They didn't have time to try and work it out. We're in a longer version. Maybe you could hang in there and try and get used to it. But we really struggled to find the real preparation you needed. The ICC were wonderful in giving us games leading in, and we tried to do on top of the tournament phase of prep, we tried to do another phase of prep against full members to try and get against those quality spinners and those quicks to give us some exposure. But it was always limited, and that was always our greatest challenge when we come up with someone who was just a little bit different. And yeah, and Freddie on that day was too good for him. Yeah, which is understandable. He's a quality cricketer. So.
I'm sure before the tournament you would have been happy with the win against England and where things went. But you probably went into that Pakistan game and thought to yourself, we might be in with a chance of getting a bit further in this tournament. But that wasn't to be. You then went on in 2011 to the World Cup again, 50 over World Cup this time in India. Another, I would imagine, amazing experience. A longer tournament for you this time. I believe you played 6 games. Unfortunately, you didn't get any victories. Highlight again probably came against England when you registered your highest score for a Dutch national team against a test playing nation, which was 292 versus England, and we all witnessed a fantastic innings from Ryan Tenduskata of 119 from 110 balls. Talk to me about that. Talk to me about some moments of that World Cup.
Yeah, look, it was a 7-week tournament. It was a long tournament. We prepared. Prepared down in Sri Lanka, and then we played our games in and around India, and then Bangladesh. We also played in Bangladesh. So it was a tough tournament. A tough country to play cricket in. Started in Nagpur with that game you made reference to. And look, what a start. Tendo, phenomenal cricketer, a special cricketer, special qualities, a real competitor. He brings professionalism to the environment.
Yep.
His record for the Netherlands was outstanding. And that 100 was phenomenal. It was just a shame because it would have been so monumental, to be honest, if we could have snuck that win off the back of the 20 to get in the 50. And look, we'd certainly done enough with the bat. It was unfortunate we had quite an inexperienced bowling attack. And, we were winning the game for a large period, but I think it was Bopara who took the game away at the back end a little bit. Wesley Brazy, I'll never forget it, to a wonderful stump bell down the leg side. I think, just kept us in the game, but we just couldn't get a consistency in overs, and in the end we ran seconds. But again, it was we were disappointed with that game, to be honest. We felt we should have probably got more out of it. And then, we played India in Delhi. We had them 4 for 90. We'd posted 210. Peter Boren had sort of resurrected our innings, and this game sort of sticks in my mind because you can imagine the environment, the atmosphere, full house, Delhi, for me and for the players. God, it was just incredible. So Wagons and Dilka opening for India, you know what I mean?
Doesn't get any better than that.
Oh, I'm pinching myself here, shaky. You know what I mean? I'm thinking, God, what am I doing here? So it was incredible, and we had them 4 for 90. Gee, okay, are we actually in this? You know what I mean? Seriously, because we'd done well to get to 210. We never thought it'd be anywhere near enough, but pinching a 4 for 90, just another couple. You just never know. You never know. Anyway, Yuvraj and Dhoni took them home, and that was the game done. But again, a good experience. I think the West Indies were too strong for us there. Tommy Cooper got, I think, a nice 50, but I can't remember too much about that game. It was in Delhi again, and we went off to Dhaka and we played Bangladesh there. We had, I think, a nightmare of runouts, I think, if I can remember there. And that Bangladesh was a side that we'd beaten over the years. It was we went into that game thinking, well, we're a possibility here. Another, fantastic country to play cricket in. It's a tough country to tour, but to play cricket in, they're fanatical. So, that was an experience again. And then, coming to the back end of the tournament, we had the island in Calcutta. And look, that's the game, isn't it? That's the game that, you're really up for. And I think Tendo got another 100 in that game. I'm not 100% sure, but I think we went pretty big again.
Yeah.
And it was a game that was certainly there to be won. And we dropped Porterfield at fine leg second over.
Oh.
Porterfield.
I actually had Paul Stirling on. I did a podcast with Paul Stirling. Him and Porterfield obviously had a record opening stand, but I forgot that you dropped them in the second over there.
We dropped Porterfield. I think it was Adil Raja that dropped him. Look, it's a long time ago, Shaky, and look, he went on to make 60 or 70, and probably stabilised that innings. But if you get an early one there and get a big one early, he was a big player for them. I would have put him on the back foot, and they were chasing. I think we must have been up near 300 again, Shaky. I can't remember exactly, but I think we had a reasonable total on the board. And that was a game again. The first game and the last game of the tournament, we were probably very disappointed. We could have taken results out of that tournament, and we just didn't achieve that. So I think we were probably a little disappointed. Going out of that tournament, great experience, phenomenal experience, but a couple of games we probably should have done. Probably a couple of games we did better than perhaps we expected too. But I mean, a couple of games we probably should have done better.
Yeah, and at that level, you probably just need a few things to go your way as well. I mean, the England game, like you said, bit of an inexperienced attack you had. Maybe if it just some fine moments were handled a little bit differently, you probably would have been able to tip a victory there. India, having them in trouble. The problem with India is they've got a batting lineup that goes forever. You were never
exactly.
You were never. It's not like you're anywhere near the tail or anything like that.
No.
You also, am I right in saying, went into the 2012 T20 World Cup?
2012.
Am I wrong there?
No. 2011 50, and then what happened in the 2000? No, Shaky, I don't think so.
No, I'm wrong then. So in 2013, your role with the Dutch national team came to an end. Now, I read your statements and stuff like that on it. It seemed like it was kind of mutual, but you also seemed extremely, by reading your words, you also seemed pretty sad about the role coming to an end. I think the Dutch, the board had given reasons as they felt that it was time for a fresh approach. And you've been
absolutely,
it's a very successful period of time. But what's your memory of your thoughts on
look
the end?
The Dutch were brilliant, fantastic. God, I, looking back, maybe I was 1 year too long. In a head coaching role, Jackie. They all have time frames. Whether that be 3, 4, 5, whatever it is. But I think the Dutch are absolutely right. A freshen up, maybe a new approach, maybe a different direction, whatever it may be. So maybe I was just loving it so much. I really enjoyed the work, enjoyed the organisation, enjoyed the people within the organisation. I love the squad. And I probably needed to push. I wasn't going to say it's time.
Yeah.
I probably needed to push. And yeah, it was a tough time, to be honest, because I was actually in Australia for the passing of my dad. I was in Australia, and my dad happened to pass when I was home, so it was unfortunately a terrible time.
Yeah.
And I got the call from Jeroen Smits saying, "Look, I need to talk to you." He was fantastic, mate. We were close, we were good friends. But
Yeah.
as he left the playing side, he went into the organisational side, and he was sort of my confidant. And he was very honest with me, and that's I respected that. And he was the man that talked to me first. Said, "We want to, the organisation wants to make a change." And yeah, that hit hard, mate. Same thing. Whenever you lose that position, you think, "Oh no, what have you done? What have you done?" But the way the Dutch handled it, as I said, I couldn't thank them enough. They were great. It was more a case of not through performance or anything that was done. It was more a case that it was just time for a change.
Yeah.
It was time, and I respected their honesty. I respected them making the decision, and they gave me a wonderful send off. And yeah, no, look, I think that all the guys there, Alex and Mark and Richard Cox was the CEO at the time, and Mark Osselberg was the chairman of the board, I think, at that time, and Rowley and all the people there were tremendous to me, and I was probably sad to be leaving the role, but I was probably sad to be leaving there as well.
Yeah.
My family loved Holland.
Yeah.
We had a great 6 years there. We developed a.
So am I right? Am I right in saying that you would have had
friendships.
you would have had 2 more kids at that point? So now you were a family of you had your 3 kids because you mentioned earlier your one son was born in Scotland and then your 2 kids are.
Yeah.
So at this point you've got 3 kids. You feel that it's your wife, your partner, and the kids are settled there. Big. Would it be quite a scary time? I'd imagine, like that transitional period. I'm really happy to hear that the Dutch, they were good to you, but. A bit of a scary time, I'd imagine, of what am I going to do now?
Look, it was. It was. And it's funny when I look back, Shaky, how, I'm a bit of a believer in, things happen for a reason and things are shaped in certain ways. I remember my dad, when he was passing there, he said, "Look, can you come home? Can you come home and look after Mum?" And at that point, I didn't know that I was, leaving Holland.
Yeah.
Blow me down. Literally 2 weeks later, I found out that, I was leaving Holland. So
for a reason, Drinno.
Well, it all appears that way. It looks back, and within 4 months, 5 months, 4 or 5 months of my dad passing, I was back in Australia.
Yeah.
And look, it was a scary period because I was coming back to nothing. When I say that, what I mean by that is. No job, no property, no infrastructure. Obviously, I had family here. So I had a wife and 3 kids, and I was bringing them to, I'm not sure what. And so there's a lot of uncertainty and, a fair bit of anxiousness. And so that next, few months was a challenging time because we made our way to Australia. And obviously, I was very considerate of taking Lindsay away further from her family. Now we're on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
So that was on my mind. And that's significant, doing that. So, so that worried me a little bit. But we come to Australia, and my wife had to go to Bundaberg with the kids. That's obviously where I'm from, and they lived with Mum for 8 weeks up in Bundaberg, and we put our youngster into school up there. And I used to come to Brisbane for the 5 days. and I used to sleep on the floor of my mate's Andre Berger, the man I mentioned before that I met in the T20. Okay, I never knew him. Okay, I never knew him. I went to the school where I used to work before I went overseas, and Churchy, and I was talking to a colleague of mine, Stephen Fryer, who played for Dunfermline, for 2 years. Okay, well, he worked for Queensland Cricket. This is how small the world is, Shaky. He worked for Queensland Cricket. I knew Stephen. He went to Dunfermline. So in my role at Scotland, I helped him out and whatnot over there. He returned to Australia and got the head of cricket at Churchy, where I used to work before I went over. So, so I contacted him and said, I'm coming back. And he said, come into the school and we'll see what we can do. And this is where I met Andre Berger. I met him in there because he was at the school, and never knew him except for that moment overseas. And Stephen got me in as assistant coach to his first 11, which I was incredibly pleased with. Have some work. Another colleague of mine, Blair Copeland, got me some more work, bits and pieces, and I slept on the floor of Andre Berger's house for 7 weeks while I run around and tried to find a house, trying to find some more work, set our life up. Find schools, which was incredibly challenging. And each weekend I used to drive back to Bundaberg and see the family, and then back I'd come again, and back I'd go. And so, you know, it was a difficult couple of months for us to get established here in Australia. But in the end, looking back, what are we now, Jakey? We're 6 years. We're very, very happy. I'm lucky I've got a beautiful house and beautiful family, and I feel blessed, to be perfectly honest with you. I feel blessed. Well,
you're good. You're a good man, Drinno. You deserve that. You've settled. Really nice to see. You know, as I said at the start of the call, I got to meet your lovely family. I only know you and Lindsay. To see your lovely family, you know, it made me really happy. You've now got your PD cricket academy as well. I believe you take a good bunch of boys. You do a camp in India every once a year or so. Is that right? You do, is it like a how does that all work?
Yeah, when I come home, Shaker, I had to start the business again, and PD cricket was operating prior to going overseas. So I basically just launched that again, and then tried to, you know, get different contracts and whatnot, and just build on that. So I've been at Churchy now for, goodness, you know, pretty well since I've been back, and now I work the first 11 there and help out the development program there. I've got a contract with the club here, Valleys, which is my old club, and I run an academy through that, which goes quite well. So we do different programs: batting, bowling, spin bowling. I bring in coaches, and they deliver those programs for me. And I had a small contract with Queensland Cricket over the last 4 years, 3 or 4 years, with the girls, with the Heat and with the Fire, which was a lot of fun. And we had quite a deal of success there as well. We won two trophies with the Heat, which was wonderful. My role was only quite small there, but it still was a lot of fun working with the girls. But that tour we do, myself and Brad Murphy, a good mate of mine here, I call us the originals because
I know him well. You sent yourself and Richie Berrington over there many years ago. So
that's right.
But you know, it was quite a good memory. But yeah, continue with yourself and Brad.
He's a good friend of mine, a good mate, and now he's the head coach down at Valleys, and we work closely down there together. We just, I don't know, got together one day and thought, well, we help players out a lot all over the place, going here and there. He said, why don't we just formalise something and take a crew to India? We obviously know Sachin over there very well. I've known Sachin for many years through the ICC and taken teams to India in preparation and whatnot. So it evolved. Goodness, we've been doing it 4 or 5 years now. And first year we took 6 players. Each year we have state players on board. We have some real good quality players. We have a cross section of players, from, you know, club players, older players, younger players, state players. You know, so, and look, it's a cricket experience. We go to Mumbai. We spend 10 days there, and we train. It's not a holiday. It's a cricket cricket tour.
Yeah.
We expose them to, you know, tough training conditions, quality Indian coaches,
Mhm.
and you know, we don't get the opportunity here, Shaky, to bat for 3-4 hours a day.
Yeah.
You know, and against different bowlers, different conditions,
Mhm.
and you know, psychologically, it's a wonderful experience for batters to try and bat long.
Yeah.
You know, challenging testing, really hot, tough conditions. So it's a tremendous experience for a cricketer.
Mhm.
You know, we promote it mainly to batters, spinners, and keepers.
Mhm.
But you know, we've taken the odd seamer over there as well. We play games. Most of the 10 days are centered around training. We do have you know, a day or two off, doing the sights of Mumbai and whatnot, getting exposed to the culture. But it's largely, you know, cricket based tour. Great,
No,
great experience, mate.
I follow it on social media, and I know I would highly recommend to any young lads out there that are looking to develop their game and experience a totally different culture. Then, you know, to get in touch with yourself or Brad Murphy, either to go to Australia or to come over to India. I mean, that's a great experience, I'd imagine, for the young boys to do. I've watched a lot of the footage that you put up. It looks like a proper setup you've got going on. You're videoing the players, you know, proper analysing things. So it's amazing.
Yeah.
So I mean, you seem in a very good place, Drinno. You've had quite a journey. It's still a long way to go in your journey, I'd imagine. What about your boys? Is there any cricketing talent coming through?
You're talking about my young lads?
Yeah, yeah.
um, oh, look, they love the game. They
Yeah.
love the game, which I think is an important start. You've got to be passionate about the game. And the older one, he likes to bowl. He likes to bowl, and he says to me, "Daddy, you know," he sent me a video just a week ago. He was home here working on his cut shot, so he sent me a video of his cut shot. Daddy,
Nice.
what do you think of my cut? So, and you know, the other one is he's got a nice off spin action. Shaky, I don't do much with them, but
Okay.
what I do see in the young fella is he's got some natural. He's got some natural flair. He's
Yeah.
got some
Okay.
natural skill. So I just watch out the corner of my eye some of the shots he plays, and he's
There could be
yeah, he's
something there down the line.
yeah. It won't have anything to do with me because they don't listen to me.
Okay.
Okay, no, they don't listen to me. I've done very little with them because of that reason.
Yeah.
I said, okay, coming back to Andre, but I said, Andre, can you coach my kids because
Can
they
you
won't
coach?
listen.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah, and
that's great. That's great to hear. I have to say this to you, Drinno, otherwise I would get into trouble. I told my parents, my mum and my dad, that I was going to be setting up an interview with you, and they wanted me to pass on their best wishes to you, Lindsay, and the kids. And you know, it's been a long time, so I pass that on. Please do pass that on to
thanks.
good lady as well.
Thanks, Shaggy. I appreciate that, and please pass ours back to your mum and dad as well, because I remember them taking us out in Glasgow. There, I remember
That's
us
right.
going to that restaurant. I
That's
do
right.
remember that very much. So no,
No,
please pass our regards back
Lindsay was
to as
there
well.
as well. We went to the village curry house, and we had a nice meal. And you know, no, they were very sad. My dad in particular was really sad when your job came to an end with Scotland. He always says, you know, Peter Drinnen was a good coach. It's unfortunate you didn't get to work with him a bit longer, but we're still thankful for the time we had with you. And I really appreciate all the time you've given me today. It's been really good to listen to you, Drinno. You're going to be the first coach that I'm going to be launching the podcast. I don't know if you've come across any of my episodes. I've had some pretty good guests on. Just done one with Darren Sammy recently. We've got some other big names coming up as well. So please spread the word if you can. I'll send you my link of my channel. Please pass it on to some of maybe the boys at Churchy if they want some extra watching in the spare time to watch some cricket. But no, I really appreciate your time, Drinno. Obviously, we'll stay in touch. And if you get over to Scotland anytime in the future, then please do give me a shout.
I will do, Shaky. It's been a pleasure, mate. Look, thank you so much for asking. And I mean, it's been lovely to talk about the old days, and lovely to catch up again. And it looks like you had a beautiful family there as well. So, no, mate, no, thank you so much. And I wish you all the very best. I've been following on Facebook, so you know, I certainly will pass on, mate. Definitely.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much.
Take care of yourself. Speak soon, mate.